Question 1, Kevin made 40 cakes. She gives 1/5 of the cakes to Andrew. She gives 10% of the 40 cakes to Chris. What fraction of the 40 cakes does she have left? Right, so the first thing I would do is probably look at this part. 1/5 of the cakes to Andrew. So it's 1/5 of 40, which is the same as 40 divided by 5, which is 8. So that's 8 cakes she's giving to Andrew, and that would be worth 1 mark to produce that 8. Then 10% of the 40 cakes to Chris. So 10% of 40 is 4. So she gives that many to Chris. There would be another mark for getting that. Now, the last mark is for the correct fraction. So what fraction of the 40 cakes does she have left? Well, she had 40, and she gave away the 8 and 4, so she gave away 12. So she has 28 left. So your answer is 28 out of 40. Or, because the answer has to be given as a fraction, so it's 28 out of 40, or 7 out of 10, because you can simplify that. So either of those, because it doesn't say you have to give it in simplified form, either of those will be correct. Question 6. Work out 17% of 54. Now remember, this is a calculator paper. So to work out 17%, the easiest way to do it is just to do a 0.17 times by 54. If you've done 54 divided by 100 times by 17, that is also absolutely fine. So you could also do 54 divided by 100 and then times that by 17. That works as well. Either of these methods work. Your answer that you should get when you put that into your calculator is 9.18. Now, if you wrote 9.18, you've now got yourself 2 marks. The third mark is to give it correct to 1 decimal place. So that's 9.2 to 1 decimal place. Okay, so don't miss that last mark by not reading the question carefully. 2 marks. So simplifying, 7t. And another 5t. Don't forget to include the symbol before. So 7t plus 5t gives me 12t. There's 1 mark for 12t. Now, minus 6u, take away another 4u. I've just done a different type of box to show that they're different. Minus 6u, take away another 4u is minus 10u. 1 mark for each of those, so 2 marks in total. Part B, factorize this. The highest common factor of 5v and 20w is just 5. So 5 is going to go outside the bracket. Inside, what do I times 5 by to get 5v? V. And what do I times 5 by to get 20w? 4w. Now the next bit is, you've not done it, so don't worry too much about it at all. I wouldn't expect hardly anyone to get any marks for this. Okay, but this one is a factorizing a double bracket situation, and you actually end up with x plus 3 and x plus 7. Those could be in either order. You would get 2 marks for doing that. Again, do not worry if you've not got this right. So you mustn't worry too much if you're not sure about this one, but it's x equals minus 3 and x equals minus 7. I don't expect anyone to really get those marks. Okay. Yeah, there's a bunch of different reasons, and we can do that when we come on to that later. It'll probably be in an after-school session that we go through that. Okay, question 8. So, this is the recipe for 6 people. If you are then serving 12 people, well, you're doubling everything to be able to feed twice as many people. So how much flour? 120 times 2, 240 grams. Now, what about for 2 people? Well, to go from 6 people to serve 2 people, you're going to have to divide everything by 3. Right? So whatever the recipe is, you're going to divide it by 3. So we've got 30 grams of butter for 6. So if I just divide that by 3, it's going to give me 10 grams of butter if I'm just doing it for 2 people. Last one. This is worth 4 marks, so it's quite a significant number of marks. Abina has 1.3 kilograms of apples and plenty of the other ingredients, so you don't need to worry about the other ingredients. She's got loads. Can she make apple crumble for 15 people? Well, this is probably the way I would do it. So you need 550 grams of apple. If you have a look back up here, you need 550 grams for 6 people. Okay, so what I would do is use what's called the unitary method, and you can check that out. Unitary means to find one. So if I just divide this by 6, I work out how many for one person. So if I divide 550 by 6, I work out how many I need for one person. So 550 divided by 6 is calculator paper. 91.6 recurring. Okay, so it's 91.6 recurring grams per person. Now, so how many will it be for 15 people? It's going to be 50. I'm going to need 15 times by 91.6 recurring grams. So I'm going to take that and times it by 15 because I need to see how much I need for 15 people. And that's 1,375 grams, which is 1.375 kilograms. So they have 1.3 kilograms, but they need 1.375 kilograms. So you need to say something like, not enough, right? That's more than how much she's got. That is more than 1.3 kilograms. You need to state that to be able that you've explained it properly. And so then your answer is no, she can't make it. So it's kind of like 1 mark for this bit, 1 mark for that bit, 1 mark for saying that it's more that is more than this, and another mark for just writing no at the end. You don't get a mark for no on its own without working out. Okay. Question 10. Pass marks for a test is 86%. Steve scores 52 out of 61 marks. Did he pass the test? Well, I just need to work out what 52 out of 61 is as a percentage. And so I just do the division. 52 out of 61. Do that division. You've got a calculator. 52 divided by 61 equals 0.8524 blah 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 blah. Okay, so did he pass the test? No, he didn't get quite. So that's the same as 85.24 etc. percent. So did he pass the test? No. Why not? 85.24 etc. is less than the pass mark, less than 86%. Some sort of actual kind of explanation about why he didn't pass the test. Question 11. 320 people go on a coach trip. Each coach holds 53 people. Gary says 6 coaches are needed. This is the easiest way to do this. There are multiple ways of doing this one. This is the easiest way to do it. Imagine they had 6 coaches, and each one can take 53 people. That's 6 times 53. 6 times 53 on the calculator if you want, 318. So, if they were doing, if they need to take 320, 6 coaches only holds 318. So, is he correct? No. 6 coaches only holds 318, and they need to take 320. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to say 320 split between the 6 if I have 53 people on each coach, how many coaches would I need? And so if you've done that calculation, 320 divided by 53, you get the answer 6.037, etc., which is slightly more than 6 coaches. So that's a different way of looking at the problem, but each is fine. That's slightly more than 6 coaches. And so you would say 6 coaches wouldn't be enough. Question 12. Trish and Mark cycled the same distance. Trish completed the distance in 2 hours. Her average speed was 16 miles per hour. Mark completed the distance in 4 hours. Find Mark's average speed for the journey. So there's a kind of common sense way of doing this, and then there's one which involves a bit more working out. I'll give you guys the common sense way of thinking about this to start with. So Trish, her average speed, she did it in 2 hours, her average speed was 16 miles per hour. Mark took twice as long. If you take twice as long, your speed would be half as much. So 8 miles per hour. But if you wanted to do a more formal method for this, distance divided by time gives me the speed. So if I think about for Trish, right, we know her speed was 16, we know her time was 2, so distance divided by 2 gives me 16. So what must the distance be? If I times both sides by 2, the distance must have been 32, because 32 divided by 2 is 16. So then I can use this 32 when I'm working out Mark's. So for Mark's speed, remember distance divided by time is speed, and Mark was 16, the distance was 32, and Mark was going, took 4 hours of time, and so that comes to 8. And that's the other way of doing it in a kind of more formal way. Okay, we come on to question 13. Alright, the ratio of 20 minutes to 1 hour can be written in the form 1 to n. Find the value of n. So this is, I think we did some work on this last year. So it's like 20 minutes. Now 1 hour is 60 minutes. Got to make them the same unit. So 20 to 60. Now that can be written as 1 to something. 1 to n. So how did you do this? Use equivalent ratios. Divide by 20. Divide this one by 20. That's 1 to 3. No, it's not. 1 to 2. What am I talking about? No, it is. Yeah, it's 1 to 3. Oh, right. Divide by 20 gives me 3. So, what is the value of n? N is 3, right? Not 1 to 3. 1 to n. What is the value of n? Well, this is where the n was. It's now got a 3 there. N must be 3. 1 mark. Okay, this is the same kind of idea. We've got 1 to 25,000. But I'm saying, how many kilometers is 6 centimeters? So 6 centimeters is in the map is how many in the real world, times by 6, right? Because that's times by 6. So this is going to be times by 6. 25,000 times by 6. I mean, it's a calculator paper. You can do it on a calculator if you want. It comes out at 150,000. Now, I need to work out what 150,000 centimeters is as kilometers. So that's my next challenge. So 150,000 centimeters is, right, now I'm going to turn that into meters. So if I divide by 100 to make it into meters, just do it in, so that's going to give me 1,500 meters. And then I'm going to divide by 1,000 to turn it into kilometers, 1.5 kilometers. Okay, next question. Kiri and Peter share some sweets in the ratio 6 to 7. What fractions does Kiri receive? Kiri gets the fraction hers out of the total. So hers are 6, the total is 13. There's your mark. Next question along. Let's turn over. Right, 5, 4, 3, 0, 0, 0 in standard form. I would encourage you just to write the number out. And then to imagine where the decimal place is. Now, how am I going to have to roll to this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to divide by, a power of 5, by 10 to the power of 5. So what I've got here is 5.43 times 10 to the power 5. 1 mark. Same sort of deal here. 6.3 times 10 to the minus 2. How does this have to move? I'm going to have to move this 1, 2. So it's 0.063. Standard form, if you didn't get the marks for that, they're really straightforward marks to get. Just make sure you do your math swatch on it, your Dr. Frost on it. Right. So, now the thing is, he's done that calculation correct. 24.4 times 10 to the 7 is the answer to that calculation. But the problem with it is that it's not in standard form. That 24, you need for standard form to have that beginning number between 1 and 10, at maximum 10. So anything like, it should be 2.44 times 10 to the 8, or any sort of comment like this should be 2.44 at the beginning. It has to be, the first number has to be between 1 and 9.9 recurring. Anything like that, you're getting your mark. Okay, question 15. There's a bunch of different ways to do this one, so I'm gonna show you a method which I would use. You guys could even get the right answer by trial and error, or all kinds of different ways. So if you finish with 20 minutes to go and you hadn't done this question, you could just trial and error it. Try different values, increase one value to try to get closer. But this is probably the way I would do it. I would say, I can only work this out if I express both with the same variable. What I mean by that is I'm going to calculate this entirely in terms of adult tickets or entirely in terms of child tickets. So here's what I would write. I'd say an adult ticket is equal to a child ticket plus £7. That's probably would be my first step, because I see here, it says here, an adult ticket is £7 more than the cost of a child ticket. That is the algebra that indicates that. Now the total cost of 6 tickets is £86. Now, and it's Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, so that's 2 adults and 4 children. 4 children. So really here, guys, what I've got is I've got 2 adult tickets plus 4 child tickets costs £86. But you cannot solve this if they have different variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this adult ticket here and just substitute that in there. Then I can write the whole thing with just the child ticket. So what I've got is 2 times by c plus 7 plus 4c is 86. Now this is not the only way of doing this. There would be other ways of doing it. Expand this out. Now I've got everything just in terms of the child ticket, haven't I? So I've got 2 times the child ticket plus 14 plus another 4 times the child ticket is 86. So I'm going to collect like terms. 6c plus 14 is 86. I'm just collecting the 2c and the 4c together. So if I take away 14 from both sides, that's going to give me 6 lots of child ticket is £72. So then if I divide by 6, 1 child ticket is £12. So if 1 child ticket is £12, an adult ticket is going to be £7 more. So the adult ticket is £12 plus £7, £19. You got that right, you got all the marks. Right, what we have here, guys, is a repeated percentage change problem. At the start of 2014, the house is worth $240,000. Increases by 5% each year. Work out the house at the start of 2017. So it's 2014 up to 2017. So that's 3 years. That's one thing to work out to begin with. We've got 3 years that I'm dealing with. Okay, then increase 5%. You're going to get a mark for this. 100%. If it's an increase of 5%, that's 105%. That's my multiplier. So 1.05, that's my multiplier, to the power of 3, because it's increasing by that 5% each year for 3 successive times. You're starting at 240,000. So if I times by 1.05 to the power of 3, I'll get my answer. So 240,000 times by 1.05 to the power of 3 equals 277,830. 277,830. Now this one, we've done prime factorization fairly recently, so hopefully this is all good. 490, let's split that out. I'm just going to go for 49 times 10. You could halve it or whatever if you wanted. This is going to be easier for me. Then I got 5 times 2 there. Those are both prime. I've got 7 times 7 here. Those are both prime. Now if you write 7 times 7 times 5 times 2, that's correct. I would probably write 2 times 5 times 7 squared. Okay. Question 18b is an absolutely standard lowest common multiple in a contextual situation involving time. They love it because it's testing a few things at once. How do I know it's a lowest common multiple problem? Because it's like the next time two things are in sync with each other is always a lowest common multiple problem. So what I've got here is I've got buses leaving every 25 minutes and buses leaving every 45 minutes. Now the fact that they both leave at 9 a.m. I would probably ignore that to start with. And I would just think, right, they all left at 9. I'm going to list some more times out, and what's the earliest time that they both arrive at the same time, or how many minutes after? So if I imagine this one, bus A leaves, okay, so buses to Ayton, so bus to Ayton, so bus A I'm going to call that. Bus A, it's going to go 25, then after 50 minutes, then after 75 minutes, then after 100 minutes, then after 125 minutes, then after 150 minutes, then after 175 minutes, then after 200 minutes. Now stop there for a reason, because I can already see that 40 is also going to go into 200. Because bus B will be leaving after 40 minutes. Does that line up? No. Then the next bus after that, bus B will then leave after 80 minutes. Does that line up with the other bus? No. Then after 120 minutes, does that line up? No. Then after 160 minutes, does that line up? No. Then after 200 minutes, it lines up after 200 minutes. So you get 2 marks for any kind of listing out of times like that. Okay? But then I need to say, okay, that's 200 minutes after it starts. Now it starts at 9 a.m. So add 200 minutes. Well, 200 minutes, 60 minutes in each hour. So 60, 120, 180, that's 3 hours. So this is 3 hours, and I've got 20 minutes left. Another mark for that. 3 hours, 20 minutes. And then there's a mark for getting the right time. And you get all 4 marks if you just get the right time. So 3 hours, 20 minutes after 9 a.m. is 10, 11, 12, 12, 20. You probably want to say 12:20 p.m., though I think you get the mark for just saying 12:20. Okay, question 19. Right, we remember, hopefully, with tree diagrams, on each splitting of the branch, the sum of the options has to add up to 1. So if there's a 0.3 chance that she'll take the bus, there must be a 0.7 chance of walking. That's 1 mark. Now, there's a 0.8 chance she catches the bus from the shops. So it's 0.8. Now, it doesn't say about it matters whether she walks or not, so those are both 0.8, and these are both 0.2, because each of these branches needs to add up to, each one of these time it splits needs to add up to 1. So 2 marks there, 1 mark for that, 1 mark for these. Show that the probability that she walks at least one way is 0.76. So I'm going to show you the 2 ways of doing this. Now, let's think about at least walking at least one way. If she walks to the shops and back from the shops, she has walked at least one way. She's walked 2 ways. If she walks to the shops but then gets the bus back, she has walked at least one way. If she gets the bus to the shops but then walks back, she has walked at least one way. The only one where she hasn't walked at least one way is if she gets the bus to the shops and gets the bus back from the shops. In that one, she didn't walk at least one way. So what is the probability? Show that the probability that she walks at least one way is 0.76. So there's 2 ways of doing this. with tree diagrams, we're going to multiply along the branches. So we've got walks, and we've got walks and bus, and we've got bus and walks, and we've got bus and bus. I'm going to show you both ways that you could work this out. So you multiply along the branches. 0.7 times 0.2 is 0.14. So that's the chances of working both ways. Walk and bus is 0.7 times 0.8, which is 0.56. So that's the most likely thing that would happen. Bus and then walks is 0.3 times 0.2, which is 0.06. There's that chance of doing that. And bus both ways is 0.3 times 0.8, which is 0.24. Now these should add up to give 1, because they're all the possible things that could happen. And 1 is a certainty. So I need to show that her chances of that she walks at least one way is 0.76. So I could either add all these three ways up that she here, or I could say everything except that one. So if I'm adding them all up, I could say 0.14 plus 0.56 plus 0.06 equals 0.76. That would get me the marks. Or I could say everything except for the chances of getting 2 buses. So everything except for 0.24 is 0.76, and that will get me the mark. Okay, question 20. Right, again, this one, we've got an original amount after a percentage change situation. Hopefully you guys recognize that. So, shows a reading 12% higher than the actual reading. So if I imagine this situation, I've got the actual reading, and the reading on the gauge is 12% higher. So 100% plus 12% is 112%. So that's a 1.12 multiplier. And that's coming out at 38.64. So to work out what the actual pressure must be, I'm going to have to reverse this situation. I really hope you guys figured out that this was an original amount problem. So I'm going to have to divide by 1.12. And that's going to give me, I think, 34.5. But let me just double check it. 38.64 divided by 1.12. Yeah, 34.5. Okay, question 21. Getting hard. Getting tricksy. Okay. 5 marker. These ones where it's worth 5 marks, we need to get some marks at least. If we get 0 marks, then you're losing a lot. Okay, so I'm just going to start by writing some things in that I know. And you're going to get marks for it. And it will help you also to work out the whole thing. So, if that's 120, and that's the whole of a diameter, then this bit here is going to be 60 meters. Well, hang on, if that's 60 meters, this is a square here, isn't it? Because those lengths are the same. So that's also 60 meters. And that's also 60 meters. So the perimeter of this region, well, let's be clear, perimeter is around the shape. So it's this plus that. That's the perimeter, is those 3 lengths put together. So my perimeter is 60 plus 60, that's these 2 parts, plus this curved bit. Okay, and you're going to get a mark for saying the perimeter is 120 plus the curved bit. Now we need to work out what that curved part is. So, let's think about your knowledge of formulae of circles. Perimeter, so circumference of a circle. Circumference of circle is pi times by the diameter. And you just need to know that. If you don't know that, shame on you, learn it. Okay? Pi times the diameter. Okay? So, now, is that the whole of the circumference? No, it's a quarter of it, isn't it? That is a quarter of the circumference. Right? So what I'm talking about here is 120 plus a quarter pi times the diameter. Because it's a quarter of the whole circle. So it's 120 plus a quarter of pi times by, what's the diameter? 120. I'm going to just put that in my calculator, exactly like that. 120 plus 1/4 times by pi times by 120. Press equals 214.247 and so on. So, then it says correct to 3 significant figures. So I need to, at the last step, just round that to 3 significant figures. First significant figure, second significant, third significant figure. Is it going to stay at 214 or round up to 215? Stay at 214. You would get 1 mark here, guys, if you did nothing here except you just produced any random number and rounded it to 3 significant figures. You would get 1 mark for the correct rounding to 3 significant figures. Okay, so, but you obviously want to be able to do, you get 1 mark for this 120, you know, you've got to think one step at a time with this. Question 22. Right, this is tough, and 22 part B involves, 22 parts, part B, yeah, this bit here involves trigonometry, and you haven't covered that yet, so don't worry about that. Okay, but the first part does not involve trigonometry, but it does involve thinking really carefully about the situation. Okay, and this is the way it works. I would be surprised if many people got this one. Okay, so B is, so first up, it's not to scale. So we can't use, it's either going to say not to scale or not drawn accurately. That means we can't measure it. There's no point measuring it. If you had a protractor with you, you should not measure it. You won't get any marks for it. Okay, right. Now, A to is, that's due east. That's due east. So that's directly east there. And that's 25. So I'm just going to put some notes on there. That's 25 kilometers. Now, C is due north 25 kilometers. Now, let's think about what we've got here. What we've got doesn't look like it, but what we've got is an isosceles triangle if I were to join these bits up. Okay, because they're both 25 there. So if I'm now, because I need to work out the bearing of B from C, so I need to work out this as a bearing. Now, when I'm working out a bearing, you're going to measure clockwise from north. So if I put this line in, my north line, north is 0, isn't it? North is a bearing of 0 degrees. And I want to find out that bit. What's that? Well, I can do it because I know what this part is. How do I know what that part is? I know what that part is because this is an isosceles. That's 90 degrees there. The other 90 degrees is shared between these two, right? Because it's an isosceles. The angles have to add up to 180, and then it's because it's an isosceles, I'm going to take away that 90 because that's between the north line and the east line, which is 90 degrees. So I've got 90 left, 180 minus 90, so I've got 90 left, and I'm going to split those. So that angle there is 45 degrees. So, if that angle is 45 degrees, then this is 180 minus 45 degrees. It's everything, that whole way round, take away that bit there, 180 minus 45 is 135 degrees. That's your answer. So there was actually, you know, that is possible to do, just need to be thinking very carefully about it. Okay, question 23. I will just do part B, even though you guys can look back on it, you know, if after you've covered trigonometry and that. But if I think about this situation, okay, so I mean, if what I've got here is A, B, and D. So A is here, B is here, and D is here. And what I know is that this part is 25, and this part here, AD, it tells me is 45 kilometers due south of A. So that's 45. And what I need to work out is the bearing of D from B. So I need to work out, this is going to be too difficult for you guys at the moment, but I need to work out that bit. D from B, all the way around from north to there. What is that bit? Well, in order to work that bit out, I need to work out what that angle is there. Okay, because if I can work out that angle, I can work this all out. And to work out that angle, I need trigonometry. So in terms of this angle here, this is the opposite side, and this is the adjacent side. And with opposite and adjacent, you need the TOA part of SOHCAHTOA from trigonometry. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense to you because you haven't covered trigonometry yet. Okay, so if I call this angle, this is angle ABD. So angle, I need tan. So tan is opposite over adjacent. So the tan of angle ABD, angle ABD is just like going from A to B to D, sandwiching that angle. That's how we write it. Tan of angle ABD is the opposite value, so opposite that angle is 45, over the adjacent angle here, which is 25. So opposite over adjacent. So tan of that angle is 45 over 25. So what I need to do is, tan is like applying a function. So to get rid of it, I can do the inverse. Just like when you multiply, you can divide to get rid of it. When you square, you can square root to get rid of it. When I tan something, I can inverse tan it to get rid of it. And that will just leave me with my angle on its own. So what I need to do is I need to do tan minus 1 to both sides. That's like inverse tan. That gives me ABD is the inverse tan of 45 over 25. And I can just put that in the calculator like that. So inverse tan is the button above the tan button. It says tan minus 1. Okay? Tan to the power minus 1 is inverse tan. And then I'll put the fraction in 45 over 25. Close brackets equals, it comes up, it gives me my angle, 60.945, etc. So that angle there, angle ABD, is equal to 60.94539, etc. What is this angle here then? Well, if I went 3/4 of the way round, so if I went all the way round to here, that would be 270 degrees, 3/4 of a turn. Each quarter of a turn is 90 degrees. So this bit here is all of that, take away that angle. So it's 270 take away 60.94539, etc. So on my calculator, I can do 270. Just in order not to lose any accuracy, just do take away answer. It'll do take away the last answer you had. That gives me 209.05. And I'm going to just write that as 209 degrees, going to round it. Don't worry, as I said, don't worry about it. You've not covered trigonometry yet, so it's nothing to worry about. Okay. Right, question 23, quickly. Right. So you're going to get 2 marks for just correctly plotting this. January to March, 130 people. So 100, 110, 120, 130. April to June, 304 people. 300, it's just less than halfway towards the first line after 300. 381, right. Just over the 380 bit. 192, use a sharp pencil for this when you're doing it. I'm just doing it like this so it shows up on the screen better. 192 in this one, so 192, so just a bit more than 190, 192. There we go. 1 mark for those correctly plotted, then we just need to join it up. Join it up in the same way as it was joined up before. So, straight line, do it dotted if they've done it dotted. You'll probably get a full mark if you don't do it dotted, if you just do it with a solid line. I'm sure that's fine as well. Join it up. and you've got the marks. 2 marks. It's an easy 2 marks, that one, I think. As long as that's just about accuracy. Just making sure you're being accurate. Right, make 2 different comments. Now these can be any comments. That's comparing 2015 and 16. 2015 is all this stuff. These 4 points. 2016 is these 4 points. Let's compare them. Any comparison between them will do. So you could say something like, the lowest amount of visitors in both years was between January and March. That would work. Or you could say the greatest amount of visitors in both years was July to September. That would work. Or you could say that in 2016, the visitor numbers in every month were higher than in every one of the 3 months was higher than in 2016, or total visitor numbers in 2016 was higher than in 2015. Or there's lots of different comments you can make. You just got to apply your common sense to this kind of thing, and actually think about what the graph is telling you, and go from there. And that is the whole lot.